Good morning and welcome to the Longboat Energy PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll, and I would now like to hand you over to CEO Helge Hammer. Good morning to you.
Thank you, Alex, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Investor Meet presentation today. In May, we announced that we had done a deal with the JPEX, and which brought in fresh capital to the business. And we also announced at the time that we were working on a small production acquisition, which would also trigger a further payment from JPEX. And on Monday this week, a couple of days ago, we announced that we had reached agreement on this production acquisition. So we will have a relatively short presentation today just to introduce you to these new assets, production assets, and we will also update you on provide an update on an exploration license, which was announced yesterday. So we are very happy to have made this deal. It's a relatively small production transaction, but it adds longevity. These are fields that are going to produce for a very long time, and we believe they also have substantial upside. The deal is with Inpex Idemitsu. What we are buying are 4.8% of Startfield East and 4.32% of Signa. These are two Startfield satellite fields. Production at the moment is 300 barrels per day, but that is set to increase since these fields are in the middle of a redevelopment project. Cash consideration of $12.75 million is for 1.55 million barrels of reserves. According to ERCE, we have had a CPR done. And we believe that is within the kind of the market price. It's very difficult to compare because of a lot of factors like abandonment and so there is no equity being raised or needed for this deal. It's paid for with the cash in hand and with the financing we have got access to through the JPEX transaction once that has completed. Now, let's look at the assets. These are located in the middle of the Norwegian North Sea, surrounded by some giant oil fields, the Snorre field up to the north east and the Startfield field to the southwest. And these two fields are subsea satellite fields tied into Startfield Sea. Startfield has 3 platforms at the moment, and these are connected to the latest and most modern of these platforms. They started production already in the mid-90s, but they are going to produce for a long time still, all the way until the late 2030s. If we look a bit closer at the Startfield East field, which is the main field, Startfield Øst. This is a large field. It's a satellite field, but it has 410 million barrels in place. So it's actually an elephant field. The field has produced for a long time, but without any artificial lift. So there is a project here now to install gas lift, which will allow these wells to produce for much, much longer. And at the moment, the field is only producing from one well, and there are 5 wells being drilled. So it goes from producing from one well to producing from 6 wells towards the end of this year. The redevelopment project was sanctioned over a year ago, which means it will get special tax treatment, which was introduced during the COVID period. It gets extra uplift, which improves the economics of this project. The subsea equipment that was needed and the gas lift equipment has already been installed. So the project is far advanced. 2 of the 5 wells have already been drilled, and 3 more wells are drilling this autumn, and then the project will be completed. The recovery factor here is 58% so far, and the project with 1.55 million barrels will only take it up to around 63%. But if you look at the Startfield field itself, it has a goal of getting up to 70% recovery factor. And it's on that basis that we assume or believe that there is significant upside beyond the reserves that are booked. And finally, on ESG, this project also has Equinor as the operator, who's have an ambitious and very well-performing special unit on this called FLX, has plans to reduce the CO2 emissions quite dramatically, something like halving them for the Startfield area, which we would benefit from. So that's kind of an additional tick in the box for this acquisition. That's kind of introduced. That's the technical explanations. I'll hand over to John on how we are going to finance this deal.
Thank you, Helge. So, I mean, I think this is a small, no doubt, it's a small acquisition. It's the acquisition we talked about when we were doing the JAPEX deal without directly referring to it because it was still being negotiated. No, I think it's a good acquisition. We think the NPV 10 is higher than the consideration we're paying. Just on a standalone basis, but it also for the asset, but it unlocks tax synergies for us. If you remember, under the new tax rules, we don't get 78% back. We get 71.8, so that's sort of 6.2% carried forward. This enables us to use that carried forward losses, so that unlocks more value. For us, it's an acquisition price of just over $8 a barrel. That's in line with recent transactions. You've got to take a view on how much ABEX exposure you're taking as well around the deals. Obviously, there's not a lot here because these are subsea tiebacks. And because it's a small deal, we can do this without an equity raise. It's being funded through the base payment, less the intercompany PLC loan repayment. There's a $4 million contingent payment, which is triggered by this transaction. And we've got access to the JAPEX bridge if we need to. So small, but gets us on the way with production. Yes, absolutely. Do we have ambitions to have bigger production deals? Absolutely. It's subject to a number of conditions precedent, one of which is us completing the JAPEX deal, which we believe will happen during July. So that's it on the sort of valuation and financing. So back to you, Helge.
Thank you, John. Just for a moment, we'll switch to another subject, which is an exploration license, which we have held for a while. We drilled the Cambozola well, which was a deep, big target drilled by Equinor as an operator in PL 1049. This license has now got new life. We have got a new group together. Operators DNO and ourselves have 40% each, and we have Petoro, a state-owned company, retaining an interest at 20%. This license, in this license, has been split stratigraphically, so like horizontally, and we have the shallow targets, the tertiary, and we have mapped 2 prospects. This is all taking the learnings from the Kveikje discoveries, and Kveikje is just one out of several discoveries in this area. Kveikje is just 10 kilometers from this license, and there are multiple other discoveries being made. Heisenberg is the most recent discovery, also an so-called injectite in Eocene. And these prospects are one in Eocene, one in Paleocene, both tertiary. One has a bigger volumetric upside, the Sjökrabs. The exciting thing here is that seismic is unlocking these prospects, and we have considerable in-house expertise. And we are able to do the seismic studies, seismic reprocessing, incorporate all the well results in the area, and lower the risk associated with drilling these. And we have substantial time. So I think at this time, this is adding optionality to our business. It adds prospective resources, and time will show if these become committed to and drilled in a few years' time. But we're very happy to make progress also in the Kveikje area, where we will drill the Lotus well in next year. And we have announced previously that we have already a rig for that. So that was an update on PL 1049S, as it now will be called. And then just to summarize today's short presentation, we're very happy to have made our first production deal. It's an important first step. It's not a large acquisition, but we believe it's a good acquisition. It's getting us some cash flow in fields that have a long remaining life and substantial upsides remaining. We have also fields that will have a considerable reduction in CO2 emissions. And that's all delivered without any need for substantial new financing. So with that, I will summarize this presentation. We continue to chase opportunities both in Norway together with JPEGs and in Southeast Asia. Thanks a lot.
Helge and Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the top right corner of your screen. While the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Helge, Jonathan, as you can see, we have received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. And Helge, if I may hand back to you and kindly ask you to read out the questions and give responses where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. So we will use a little bit of time on these questions, and I will round off. So first question, how many data rooms are you in, and how many opportunities are you reviewing? Can we expect further production acquisitions in the short term? The answer to that is that there are multiple live data rooms and multiple live processes, and whether we would succeed with any of these is too early to say. So whether there will be anything new in the short term, I cannot say for certain. But we keep running multiple processes in parallel. Also, we are not only looking at production acquisitions, but also at development projects because of the Norwegian tax system, which has now made production acquisition much more doable. Second question, was the modest production acquisition the one that was referenced in JPEGs? And I think we covered that in the presentation. The answer is yes, so that will trigger the 4 million payment. We have a question. Longboat notes a growth strategy to reach significant production. What level would management deem significant? Yeah, well, I think when we get into 10 to 20,000, then that becomes a very considerable cash flow out of that. So in that type of level, it's also what we have agreed with JPEX is the goal for Norway to have significant production in 3 to 5 years, and that would be around that level. So is LBE interested in any of the other small assets held by Inpex Idemitsu? Yeah, probably yes, but are they interested in selling them to us? I can't answer that.
That's probably one for me on the recapitalizing and putting an RBL in place for this production.
Yes,
I think we've seen the RBL market has definitely changed over the last 3 years. The RBL, I'd say that we've seen some banks withdraw, we've seen facility sizes go down with the exceptional profits levy in the UK. But I think those two factors, I think we're now starting to see that RBL market stabilise, and we know who the serious players are in it, and I think the banks the banks that are in it see it as a way A, to make money, and B, that we need oil and gas. I think that this acquisition is too small to warrant the attention of a bank on an RBL. I think you've got to get above several thousand barrels a day before they'll actually invest the time and effort, and that's where we've got to get to. I think there are other financing opportunities around the Norwegian tax system which we need to explore and to see whether we can get over the line for other types of projects. So in short, no, this won't be refinanced with an RBL. We would need some more production. Back to you, Helge.
Thanks, John. Yeah, there is a question. Was the acquisition of the Idemitsu asset the result of a competitive process? If not, was Idemitsu happy to go with Longboat? Yeah, the origination, the start of this discussion around this was actually the time when we founded the Kveikje. So the discussion has been going on for a long time, and we have been in a bilateral process for a very long time on these assets, which is always a strength of our company and of the the network and the network we have in the industry and the relationships we have. Then maybe a question for you, John, there is on the 2023 cash flow.
I expect the pro and contra to be broadly neutral this year because of although there'll be revenue which would reduce the acquisition price, we've also we're drilling five additional wells, and they roughly net out, so there won't be much in the way of pro and contra. Back to you, Helge.
Thanks. And then a final question is around the M&A market in Norway and whether the oil prices have had any impact on that market. And I don't. It's not something I see immediately anyway. But oil prices are not. They have dropped gradually. So I guess the reaction to this is going to take some time. Companies need to revisit the plans, but I'm quite hopeful that the combination of a lot of capex, a lot of projects underway, and say lower prices would put some pressure on companies to rationalize and do things to their portfolios, both in Norway and in Southeast Asia. Very good. I think with that, we'll close the Q&A session today. Thank you.
Perfect. Helge, Jonathan, I believe you have addressed all the questions for investors today. And of course, the company will review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But perhaps before redirecting investors to provide you with the feedback, which I know is particularly important to the company, Helge, could I please ask you for a few closing comments?
Yeah, thank you all for attending this morning, and we are excited about where we are now. I think during the last month or two, we have turned the business around. I think the JPEX deal, bringing in JPEX into Norway, the production deal, it puts us on a quite a different situation, and we're very excited about all the stuff we're looking at the moment. So more to come. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Helga, Jonathan, thank you once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Longboat Energy PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. Good afternoon to you all.